Good morning. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to day two of our financial checkup seminar. I appreciate everybody kind of getting everybody a second to get in and get acclimated. We're ready to get going. Yesterday was a phenomenal day. Shout out to Pastor Jay. Shout out to Karen Alford, who is my aunt, who did such a phenomenal job with the topics and everything they covered yesterday. And I'm hoping today is just as dynamic as we cover the topic, Am I Covered? Which, of course, we'll be dealing with everything from the standpoint of insurance and different levels of insurance, ways your insurance policies can work for you. Whole lot of different avenues we're going to cover today. And then let me just kind of get your interest ready or pique your ears for tomorrow. You will get a double dose tomorrow. Pastor Jay will have the midday session, and then our pastor will have the 6:30 p.m. session where he will cover essentially the biblical aspect of the financial checkup. He'll kind of parallel those two things. So you want to make sure you are ready. Tomorrow is going to be a jam-packed day with both of those sessions. Make sure you all share this. Make sure you kind of get it out there so that everybody can get a chance. We want to make sure we are doing our part to equip the body as much as we can. So make sure you kind of get it out there, and then get your notepad ready. I hope you're ready to take some notes. I kind of got my note taking equipment ready to get started. But hopefully, I've given you enough time to kind of get in. And I will introduce our special guest today, Leah Wiggins, who is the owner of the Leah Wiggins Agency of Farmers Insurance, an award winning scratch business she started in 2009. As a registered representative holding both Series 6 and 6.3 licenses, Leah and her agency team serve others by finding the best financial plans to protect their assets and build wealth, which I think that's something that we really want to get into. Leah is a member of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors and has the Life Underwriter Training Council Fellow and the Financial Services Certified Professional designations from the American College of Financial Services. So she's well qualified. I want y'all to know that she is well qualified. She knows her stuff. So without further ado, I will bring in Leah Wiggins. Welcome, welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank
How-
you, George. I appreciate that introduction. I have spent a good bit of my time just learning a lot about this industry and coupled with my passion for helping people leave a generation, a legacy to other generations.
Okay.
I found this to be a very great industry to be a part of. Before I get started, I want to thank Pastor George Matthews and Pastor Judith Matthews, my pastors. Let me say that first of
Okay.
all. I am a
Okay.
member of Calvary Resurrection Christian Church, and I have sat under them for years. And I'm so thankful for this platform that they have provided for all of us this week because
Absolutely.
this is just a refresher.
For sure.
We know a lot of things about building wealth, but sometimes we need that checkup. And so I'm appreciative to both our pastors for this opportunity to have this checkup, and we're going to deal a little bit about building wealth and knowing are you covered? Am I covered? As you already stated, George, I've been for the last 14 years finding ways to help families all across the state of Alabama. Not only families, but business owners, people who are passionate about building wealth for their children and children's children after them. So we have a widespread connection across the U.S.
Okay.
Although we are licensed in the state of Alabama and we help people in the state of Alabama, our networks are such that if you're listening and you are outside of Alabama and you have questions still, we can connect you with other like minded professionals who could
Oh,
help
that's
you
awesome.
make sure that you are covered. So our networks are vast. We have a lot of partners within the state of Alabama with various providers of assets, such as attorneys, accountants. We can help you get done what you need to be done and help make sure that you're accurately reviewing your assets from time to time. So I'll just start out a little bit telling you about what we hope to do today.
Okay.
Hopefully, we'll build upon the knowledge that we had, that we already have. We'll take some of the things about the budgeting that we got from yesterday, which I think was awesome. And then we'll take all of this and build upon the things that we're already doing in our lives. We're going to add that praise that Pastor's been talking about, making sure that he's in the midst of things,
All
uh,
right.
sure that those things that we want God to do for us and that he's planned for us, that he can do that because he just dwells with us. So we're going to add that wisdom to it, our faith, and hopefully we'll have the outcomes that we so desire for our families through building wealth. So I got two scriptures that I'm going to start out with. One is Proverbs 13:22. And it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but sinners' wealth, or one translation says, or the wealth of the wicked, is passed to the righteous. Now, the next one is Proverbs 15:22, and it says, without counsel, plans fail, but
For
with
sure.
key advisors, they succeed. So today, we are taking the wisdom that we have been shared. We're going to get the advice, and we're going to have our plans succeed. We're going to be the good men. We're going to be cultivating some good men. You're some good men out there, right? Some good women. We don't want all the things that we work so hard for to be
Right.
taken over by somebody else who has not planned, but they know how to work the things to get the inheritance built up. So we're going to get this good counsel. We're going to go forth, and we're going to make sure that our inheritance is passed on to our children, and that we're wise enough to protect it while we have it. So, if we have that first slide, one of the first things that we'll be talking about, and you see right there, there's my contact information. We're going to answer some questions at the end, but if you like, you can go to my social media pages. You can like my pages, and you can kind of keep up with me on some things that we share. But today's segment is called "Am I Covered? Are you covered?" And so we're going to deal with some definitions, and we're going to talk about what covered means. So when you use the word covered, it means to protect from. It can mean to protect to. It can also say this is compensation for. So it's a provision being covered. Again, it's a provision. And so that's what we'll hang our hats at. What we'll discuss today are your valuables, the most important things that you own, the most important things to you. Are they preserved? Are they protected? And if you have not figured out how to do that, we're going to share with you some things to do to protect it and preserve it. I know some of you are homeowners. Some of you are homeowners. So we'll talk about some of the different coverages. If we'll see on the next slide that in my agency, there are a whole lot of things that you may not even know that you can protect. You can protect your auto, you can protect your home, you can protect your business, you can protect if you're a landlord, you can protect those rental houses that you have. If you have acquired homes through tax payments, that's an asset that you may need to protect. If you have a brand in your business, that can be protected. Now,
Hmm.
did you know to protect your money? Yeah, you can protect your money, and we help people protect the money, the principal that they have, but also build upon that and grow it, and possibly leave it for other generations.
Because we all want to know about how to grow it. That's what we want to know, how to grow it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so we can talk about some things that give you time. And one of the benefits of this today is this is a starting point.
Right.
You're not too old, you're not too young, but as long as you have time, you can grow what you have, and you can
For sure.
make sure that it's protected. All right. And you can protect yourself. You are, in my opinion, you, an individual, are your biggest assets in your household and to your
Absolutely.
family. You are the biggest asset. So, are you covered? Is your spouse covered? Are your children covered? Okay. Do you have an interest in making sure that your grandchildren are covered? All
Right.
right. These are all things that can you can protect, and we can share with you some things about making sure they're protected. So those are some of the types of coverage. Now, this is may not be specific to your situation, but again, I say to you, Not one size fits all, but we can help you figure out what is best for you, because we will see in a slide that's coming a little further that if you're in a different stage in your life, what works for me may not work for you, and
Right.
that's what we want to make sure that you know. Don't be so quick to jump on what everyone else is doing, because it may not work for you. And know that your professional, your insurance and financial services professional, can find custom ways to protect you. So, I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask, and hopefully we'll answer them as well. But why use insurance, and why are there so many different coverages? Number one, insurance coverage is planning. Again, in the event of an emergency, an unforeseen tragedy, an accident, it positions you for the comeback. Now, it may not necessarily have you for a comeback, because that's not really the intended of the insurer, but it
Right.
will get you back where you were prior to the unforeseen incident.
Gotcha.
Um,
For sure.
so that's sort of what it is. It's vision. And no, the tragedy may not come, because we don't want tragedies to happen to our home, to destroy our assets. But it's provision, and the thing about it is you never know.
Right.
And
Right.
so planning is very important. And so that's one of the things that people sometimes have a hesitancy about with insurance as well. I haven't had any claims, nothing has happened. Why am I still paying for this? Well, here's the other thing. If you wanted to save money and you could estimate what an tragedy, the effect or the financial impact it would be to your assets, and you could save for that, then
Right.
you wouldn't have to have insurance.
Right.
But unfortunately, we don't know that. And fortunately, we have insurance that we don't have to spend that, because you never know what that expense can raise to. It could be thousands of dollars to restore you in some situations. I have another scripture, and it's in 1 Timothy 5:8, and it says, "But those who won't care for their relatives, even those in their own household or business, they have denied the true faith." The true faith is care and provision for your family.
Correct.
So we got some believers on here, I know, right?
Absolutely.
We got some people of faith. So we know you want to ensure your love, and you want to take care of your family. So I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what is insurance? Truly, what is it? It's an exchange. You exchange a level of risk for in a contract for a company that promises to pay in the event of a loss. Now, it has to be one of those losses that are in that contract, but that's an exchange. It's not for misuse, it's not for abuse or for lack of care by the insured, but it is for a peril or a tragedy. It's not a home warranty. Now, that's where we get into our education. So my garage door is broken. So at my home, so my roof, I need a new roof. It's not necessarily just for the wear and tear and the years that you just have may have neglected, but it is also for you to be protected in the event of some of those losses. It's a restoration for those covered losses. Now, one of the things I want to tell you, I'm not just one who has drunk the Kool-Aid for insurance because I'm in this industry.
Right.
I am sort of a second generation. My mother, who is in heaven now, but uh, when she was younger, up to my birth, she was one of the first women in who sold life insurance in the city of Birmingham for Booker T.
Wow.
Washington Insurance, and well, that was one of the things that we did. We knew we had to make provisions, so she had life insurance until she had passed. She passed on that legacy to us. So I know the value of it, and so we're sharing with you things that we know works, and we're sharing with you things that could be of benefit. Proverbs 21:20 says, "A wise man saves for the future, but a foolish man spends whatever he gets." So we don't want to spend everything that we get. We're going to use it for
Right.
some things, and we're going to lay it up, and then we're going to prepare for our family. Okay, so here's some things that affect insurance. Did you know that it is related to credit and how you pay your bills? And sometimes insurance companies will assess what your level of care have been to making payments on your insurance, or excuse me, not necessarily your insurance, but any of your other bills. So there's a risk that is assigned to premiums on insurance.
Hmm.
There's your claims history. What, how many, claims have you had? Not just where you're living now, but where you've lived before. Have you had continuous coverage? Have you had breaks in coverage? Are you one of these mountain climbers? Are you a skydiver? Your occupation may impact the premium on your insurance, and your health, depending on any pre-existing conditions. So all of these go into the various types of insurance. Now, here's the last reason why you may want to get covered. Maybe it's because an organization requires you to have it. Now, if you're a business owner and you're having a contract with some entity, they may require you to have general liability, one of those types of coverages that I showed you earlier. If you are riding around in a car, we got car drivers, car owners in here, then you got to have some liability insurance to be on the road, or you should have it. And if you don't, that's why you need to make sure that your coverage has coverage for uninsured motorists. So that's a reason why to have insurance, because it may be required. All right. Are you buying a home and are you getting a loan? Then the lender likely will require that their investment in you is protected and you have to have home insurance. So, do you have another home that you have purchased? Do you want to protect it? Now, again, this goes back to the point. We wouldn't need to have insurance if we would save for a tragedy and could estimate the amount of the tragedy. But this is an exchange. And so, if you have bought something outright, you purchased a house outright, you don't want to just leave that uncovered.
Right.
So you want to protect it again. So we're not having anybody riding dirty here. Yeah, we got some car owners in here. So we're going to make it a priority to protect the things that we have and then use some things to build wealth. Okay. So when we go to the next thing, I'm going to show you here. There are a lot of different family places you may be in family. So are you a new family? Then what coverage you need looks different from what it would be for an empty nester. Do you have children, toddlers? Do you have children in elementary school who you want to protect and make sure provision is made for them in the event something happens to you? Are you a newlywed? All those things, and you can just see right here the different type of families. Are you a newly married family? Are you a renter? Are you a renter? So it varies. And so are you a single parent? Are you just a single person?
Hmm.
All that matters in terms of what your portfolio may look like. So now I shared this earlier. The insurance and financial services professional that you deal with should be able to advise you on what's best for you and your family. We spend a good bit of time talking to our clients now. We do a review with our clients, and I've been in business for 14 years. We do a review with pretty much every one of our clients at least once a year. We can get you on the phone, or if you want to come in, we take time to look at what has changed, because you could likely change over time. And I've had
Right.
people change,
Right.
their family status change over the years. And so what their coverage and protection look like 5 years earlier may not be the same as it is now. So be sure that you are asking for that time to talk about everything in your house, not just talk about a policy. Let's talk about what works for me, for my household, for coverage for my assets. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you a tool that you can kind of pull together all of your assets and kind of do a whole picture and have a better idea of what you have.
Okay.
So, yeah, did you have a question right there?
No, I'm listening. I'm locked in. I'm locked in.
Okay. All right. I keep the questions coming. I see quite a few comments here that are good regarding the coverage. So let's go into one specific type of coverage. Like I showed you earlier, we offer so many different, probably 50 different coverages we can provide for family members, individuals, and for business owners. We're going to go into the life insurance. We're coming up on. You're going to hear, if you follow my pages, you'll see a good bit about insure your love, and we're right one day away from the month of February. So let's go into the life insurance. And one of the biggest myths about life insurance is term insurance is better than a whole or permanent life policy. I would have asked you, do you think it's a myth? But I'm just going to tell you, it is a myth. Um, and I have no particular preference for one or the other. We always say whichever policy is enforced when the insurer passes is the best type of policy, because
Gotcha.
nobody really talks about what type of policy it was when the payout comes if they need it.
Right.
So it does not matter. But what matters is um, what works for you. So if you have, if you're in a phase, particularly if you had some younger children and you wanted to protect them and make sure the coverage was available for them, or you left them something and something were to happen to you, if you have for instance, a 5-year-old, you may want to get a term policy for a larger amount. And I'll go into the definitions really quickly. A term policy is just for that, a term, typically for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. A permanent life policy or whole policy covers for your entire life.
Right.
A whole policy, you typically will pay in for the entire policy period. But for certain permanent life policies, like an index policy, you could pay for about whatever you decide. You can say, until I retire, I don't want to pay into a policy anymore. And you have a flexible premium that you can pay into it.
Mm.
The difference is between the term and the whole or permanent is that the term is for a time period, whole or permanent is for your entire life with different options to pay into the policy. But to my main point, neither is better than the other. Whatever works for you.
Gotcha.
And depends on the age in which you get started with the policy. Maybe one may be less expensive than the others. I would never recommend that a parent, if they wanted to protect their child, to get a term policy. I don't even think we really sell those or have those, because it makes no financial sense to do that, because it's so inexpensive to get a whole life policy. So usually the option between term and whole comes when people have aged, as we are older, and if our health may have challenges. So choose, like we already have here, what works for you. All
Right.
right. That's myth number one. One is better than the other. Next myth is what I have on here. Life insurance is expensive. Not necessarily. Again, I saw on the budget yesterday from Miss Elford, excuse me, that she had $100 budget for her insurance. I don't know which insurance that was. At least she had it on her budget, but it can be fairly inexpensive for a lot of people in a lot of situations. Again, that's something that you would talk to financial services or representative about, and they can find something that fits your budget. One of the things we do is, and I'll share this in a minute. Which I do just like an analysis. I take like a yellow sheet of paper, and I look at you. What are your loans? We talk about what income you may want to protect, what final expenses you think you may have, and we look at what your total need is. Look at what current insurance you have. Maybe you have some at work. Maybe you have something that some family member has on you. And we see if there are any gaps. And then, based on your age, we look at what options are available for you. So it does not have to be expensive. The earlier you start, the less expensive it will be, however,
Gotcha.
because statistically, we're aging and we're closer to death than we were when we first started.
Right.
Although
Right.
most
Human
of us are
nature.
growing
Yeah. Yeah.
younger
For sure.
in our appearance and we're healthy, it does not have to be expensive. So that's
Right.
a myth. Let's go to the next slide. I don't know what I have on there. Um, you don't need life insurance if you're young and healthy. Well, again, if you want to make provision for your family after you have passed, or if you want to use life insurance as a tool for getting cash, um, then You may want to still get life insurance because it's one that you wouldn't necessarily have to pay for a loan back on, pay interest on. It's a lot of different things you can use a life insurance for. And if you're young and healthy, you may want to look at it because it is least expensive when you're young and healthy. And it's a way of preparing for the future. Now, if you're one of these athletes, he's got these buff bods, you look like George the Third, and you're working out every day. uh, this is a good time for you to have some insurance
Right.
because you can plan even for when your family dynamics may change over time. But this is probably the least challenging for you for the insurance, but um, you can get it for an inexpensive rate. But you can get it because you don't know how your life is going to change. Is what I'm
Right.
saying. This is the best time. You have to avoid the challenges that may come with health for the future. So you might not need it now, but again, it's a provision for the future. Next myth here. I think I got a couple more. I'm single. I have no dependents. I don't need any insurance. Well, if you're single, if anybody depends on you, this may be an opportunity for you. You may not want to leave it to children, but most of us have nieces or nephews or godchildren. Somebody we want to leave an inheritance to, because as you know, as we develop in our spiritual lives, we want to care for not only ourselves, but we want to leave for others. So if you've ever thought of maybe donating even to a charitable cause, there are provisions in life insurance policies that will allow you to donate to universities and colleges or the charity of your choice. So you can use this as a way to establish your legacy. And again, your life status may change and you may get married at some point and you may have dependents later on in life. That's the good thing about it. Plan for the future because we not don't necessarily know how things may change in our life. I think
Right.
there's one more slide, one more myth. If you have health issues, you can't get it. That is not true.
That's a
Uh,
good point.
yeah, so if you have a health challenge, just be truthful when you're doing the application. That way, the professional will be able to direct this the application that you do, to a policy that makes provision for it. So there may be a requirement to have your records, medical records. There may be policies that don't even ask medical questions. There are some that ask like a couple of questions. Are you on oxygen? And are you in a nursing home? And now the limits for the face amount may not be vast. They may be limited, maybe $20,000 or $30,000 for a face amount, but you can have some coverage. And that's what we talked about earlier. The younger you are, the healthier you are, uh, you have better provisions for life insurance because you never know what happens in your life. But even if you are at a point where you have a health issue, you may be able to get life insurance. Even if you are a smoker, we don't, necessarily recommend that. But if you smoke, um, if you take medicinal or not, marijuana, those things may not prohibit you from having life insurance. Just be honest, and we can provide options for it. And you may be able to, not guaranteeing it on some health issues, but there are provisions despite some of the health issues that people may have.
Okay.
Is that all the myths I have on here? Um, Okay, yes. Here's the last one possibly. Life insurance through your job is enough. Well, if you're an educator, then you likely know that when you leave your job in a lot of the areas, and we have a lot of educators that we help, when they leave their job, they were on a group plan. And so when they leave or retire, they have to get life insurance.
Mm.
So a lot of times, companies offer you a group life insurance, and what they do is group all of you together. They don't ask a lot of questions about health. They base it on your income 2 or 3 times, and they're able to forego some of the risk of an individual life policy, but they provide it to you. It's good to have. I say don't leave it on the table. If they offer it
Right.
to you, take it,
Take it.
but that's not all you may need. We found statistically most people don't stay on jobs the way they used to stay, and they're leaving. 10 years, 5 years. So you're aging each time you leave. So it's good to get insurance outside of your job in the event you make a transition in your career or make changes to leave your job.
Right.
All right. So why life insurance? Life insurance is the quickest way to build an estate. What do I mean by that? Usually, as soon as you sign a life insurance policy and you're underwritten and it's been issued for you, you have an estate of whatever the face amount of that is. If it's $100,000, you already have an estate that you can pass on and leave a legacy to your
Oh wow.
family. You have a $300,000, that estate is built immediately. It's not, you're not waiting for income to come in from your job where you can save and invest. Although I do advise you to look at that as a part of your portfolio as well. You're not waiting for income from a rental property that you own to get the income to amass. You immediately have an estate that is built up with life insurance. And here's the other thing. If you choose to, you can have cash built up in that estate as well as a death benefit that can be passed on. Now, there are some uses for the cash benefit. I think we kind of alluded to that earlier, that you can take that cash and use it for the things that you may want to have in your family. And it is an estate that you don't have to go anywhere to go to a judge and utilize an attorney and take away fees to have it probated. You say who you want your beneficiary to be, and they get that money. Period.
Mm.
So there you go. It's a quick estate, an immediate estate to cover your family. All right. Next slide. And so we're wrapping up here. So, what can life insurance do for you? It can help meet your current needs by utilizing cash value in a permanent life policy. Um, it allows you to give something for have something in exchange for an unexpected situation or tragedy. It allows you to build wealth. The money, the cash that's being built up in your life insurance can be invested, so to speak. I'm not giving investment advice right here, generally speaking, but you can have that money in a mutual fund. You can have it in something that is indexed that gives you credits based on its growth. And that cash can continue to grow because it's built up in a life insurance policy. And you can use that to pass on to future generations. And like I talked about earlier, you may have some other philanthropic objectives to give to others that you may want to use the cash value for. So, are you covered? Do you have life insurance? And this is for those who may need uh, some information on how to build that wealth. One more slide, I believe I have. Okay, so here's where you get to work. You, I, we need to do an assessment. We need to do a review. I talked about doing that with your financial services or insurance professional, but you need to sit down and just kind of write down what do I have, who do I need to talk to, what do I have for auto, what do I have for home, what do I have for um, my business, and then we can talk about how you can get covered. You need to do a self assessment. I know it's a hard thing, and we don't want to sit down and pull out papers and kind of figure out what we've been paying money for that may have been auto debited and we didn't remember what it was for and how much it was for. But you need to do an assessment, and we need to spend time doing it. I suggest doing that at least once every 6 months. Again, we're at the first of the year. This kickoff, this checkup is a good time to start. Next slide. One of the tools that I have shared is a tool that I use from, I think this is from the principal, it's one of my providers. But it is a 16, 15-page document. You can go online to the web to find that self assessment, and you can look at everything that you have and write down everything that you have, or input or type it in, all the coverages. It goes into all several different coverages to see what your limits are. Is that limit enough? Is that just a state minimum, or is there a greater amount that needs to be covered? But I suggest you do an assessment and then determine how you can build upon what you already have.
Gotcha.
All right, next slide. So, in summary, it takes discipline for us to do this. You take a look at in the mirror at what you have, look at what you want, set your goals. Then you begin to create the wealth. You're out here working hard already. You're buying cars, you're buying houses, you're investing in property, you're starting a business, and you need to protect those things because that's your wealth. They say you
Right.
know that the house is a home. Owning a home is the ground floor for building wealth, and go back again and again to assess it and reassess it and then be disciplined enough to make changes where you need to make changes.
Gotcha.
All right. So we have some questions here.
For sure. I have one question specifically about homeowners insurance. And of course, with how the world is changing and you have a lot of natural disasters happening, and a lot of insurance carriers have pulled out of certain states. So the question is, how do you shop smart um, dealing with insurance carriers pulling out of your state or no longer covering in your state? Just kind of making sure you're covered and you make the best decision in those situations.
Yes. So I know in the South, so the tornadoes kind of affect the reserves and the money that companies have built up to pay, and that's why a lot of them will pull out because the premiums, the money, and they don't find it as a benefit for those areas. So it's important to know what type of the carrier that you have, what the ratings that they have based on whatever various financial tools they use, because if the company is not large enough, they may not be able to sustain certain losses. I won't name any of them, but a few years ago, there were a couple of carriers that dropped a lot of houses in this area because of the age of the house, because to rebuild them, it was too expensive, but it matters. So
Right.
just be mindful that that can happen. A large provider typically is building up premiums from all the people who pay, and so they're able to pay out in the event of losses, and that does matter. Our company happens to be one that does. We're all over the country, and so that does matter.
So would they check the Better Business Bureau to kind of get a idea of those ratings, or what would be a good place to look for those?
Most of the companies on their website kind of have the ratings that they have based on the gauge of the industry measures. I guess you could check the Better Business Bureau.
Okay.
Um, that that usually logs individuals who make complaints against them or whatever, but it does kind of say what they are doing in the community as well, or the Department of Insurance.
Okay. Also, do you think that all insurance companies are created equal? Like, are there certain things? And I know this kind of piggybacks or dovetails on the question that we just talked about, but like, are there certain things that you should see as like a trigger, like, this probably isn't a company I need to rock with? Or are there certain perks that come with being with bigger companies versus smaller companies? Kind of how does that work?
I guess back to the point that we just made, the company matters, but I tend to be a relational person, and I think the advisor or the provider weighs a little bit more than necessarily the company. You want to make sure that they're with a reputable company, but for me, in my situation, what I have done, I've tried to make sure that I have a broad knowledge of a lot of different things. My staff and my team, we do property and casualty, we do life, we do financial services, and that's because I'm actually licensed in that and have a passion for it.
Okay.
But not all companies and all individuals or insurance persons are the same. So I think the relationship, people do business with people they know
Right.
more so than the companies that they work for.
Okay.
So get to know the person that you're working for, and you know, more importantly than the company rating, what about the person that you're dealing with? Because this is your livelihood. These are things that you've worked hard for. You want to make sure that that individual is providing a service that and providing the attention that you need for it. So it all matters, and you can check us out too. Uh, my licenses allow for checking out on various Department of Insurance. That matters too. So you can check us out on those things as well.
Okay. Also, I got a lot of questions kind of jumping off here. Even if you're not in a flood zone, should you still or can you still get flood insurance?
Uh, you can get flood insurance. Yes, you can decide to have that for your coverage because there's a small percentage of places that do not have any potential of flooding. And the only thing that matters is that there's a different rating assigned if it's in a particular floodplain. But yes, you can talk to your provider that can give you an estimate of what it would cost to cover you for flood. And in fact, we do recommend that or suggest that to our clients too. Do you want to look at that just in case? Because life is happening, the world and the shape and the balances, all that is
For sure.
different now. So you may not, and homeowners does not cover. Let me just say that flat out. Homeowners, the typical homeowners policy does not cover flood, and so
Okay.
this is just another provision that you could do in the event you want to just be safe.
Gotcha. Also, do you think it's wise to carry multiple policies on the same person? And that's question 1A. Question 1B, is there such thing as too many policies for one person to have?
Okay, I'm assuming we're talking about life insurance.
Right, 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 right.
Okay. All right. Is it why? So if you do an accurate assessment, you as a person, if you do an accurate assessment of that person from the beginning, there's really no reason to have a whole bunch of them.
Right.
But if your budget allows you at one time to say, okay, I can afford $50,000 of face value or 100,000, and so I'm going to get that, and you decide, okay, later, well, we can do more. Um, then it's going to be more expensive the second time, only because that person has aged, and with time, policies go, they're more expensive. But we always suggest that you do an accurate assessment from the beginning because the younger you are, the less expensive it is. And number one, let me say this: you got to have an insurable interest. You can't just go out
Okay.
here and just get life insurance policies on whomever you want to. It's your spouse, your ex-spouse. There has to be an interest in you having
Gotcha.
insurance on them, and they have to know that you're getting that insurance on them. If you are a godparent or grandparent, you're getting insurance on the children. Typically, they require you to have an acknowledgement that the parent has allowed you to do that. So multiple policies would probably come in place if you just didn't plan necessarily for the proper amount, and now you realize the value of having it and having others. So you can have multiple. You can have a term policy. You can have a permanent life policy. You can have various kinds. So you can do that. There's nothing that prohibits you from doing that.
Okay. Also, another question: is there an opportunity to build cash value through a policy that can be borrowed against should the need arise? I guess kind of explain that more in depth. I know we kind of scraped the surface on it, but if you can kind of expound on that a little bit more for us.
Yes, so there are policies that pretty much one that builds a cash value is one that you could probably take a loan from.
Okay.
Usually, there are stipulations based on the amount of money that has been put in there that the policy would not lapse. But an index universal life, we do a lot of those. We do variable universal life policies. Pretty much any policy that is a permanent life policy that has cash, there should be a provision where you can take money from it, and there are certain sort of controls on it that typically won't allow it to go out of force as well when you take a loan. So they'll tell you how much you can take the loan for, and
Okay.
utilize it for those things that you may want to use it for.
Okay. Last but not least, I haven't seen any other questions pop up, so let me throw this out there. The link that you asked about, that you referenced for the self-assessment, can you make sure you provide it for us? You can say it now, or you can give it to us, and we can make sure we post it to the video so that when people go back and rewatch the video, we can have it there. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
Either
I did
option
send it.
works.
I did send it over. The link, I don't know, I can't get to it, and I'll close something down if I start trying to move around. But it
Okay.
is on the principal website, and it's called. If you go back to it, it's like um, a legacy assessment is what it's called, and it's
Okay.
a place where you put all of your coverages and do the coverage limits on it that you have for a particular policy, and then you can go from there and decide whether or not that's the proper amount of coverage. But yes, it is, like I said, just a tool. Go to Principal, maybe Principal, PRIN, CIP, LE, I believe is the spelling of it. But I don't know. Yeah, Principal. Go to principal.com, Principal, and look for the legacy planning tool, planning
Okay.
for your legacy.
And I'm getting a message from the production team, so he says we'll make sure we get that out there for you guys. Anybody that didn't follow that, we'll make sure we have the direct link. Also, another question: what's the best way to build cash value through a life insurance policy that can be passed on to grandchildren or children once they become adults without the insured passing away?
Without the insured passing away. The best way to pass up, are you saying maybe add them on or put it in a trust maybe to make sure they're the owner of the policy? There are some provisions you can do to make sure that they get ownership of the policy, and then you can name them as beneficiary as well. Hopefully that answers the questions of how to pass it on to the youth. I wouldn't necessarily put a child on there because they can't take control of that, but maybe you set up a trust and maybe you designate that to go to them at a specific time. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. I'm trying to understand this last question. I have a protected life insurance policy for about 15 years. So can I invest this cash value? I guess that would be something you would have to kind of know the terms of the policy to be able to answer that.
Right, right. And so I would ask you to talk to an advisor or someone who administer that policy to tell you what you can use that money for. But typically, when you take it out, you can use it for whatever you want. I don't know how they assign any tax um, assessments on that, but you'd have to look at the policy to see how it has been set up.
Okay. I haven't seen any other questions pop up. So, Leah, I really sincerely appreciate you and the wealth of information that you provided to us today. That was phenomenal. And I'm sure you got a lot of people ready to get on the phone and make some phone calls. And we would like to also make sure we get your information out there so that people can connect with you. I know I did see a question. Somebody out of state wanted to know a contact, or if you could kind of point them in the direction for some your Florida contacts or like a network in that
Okay,
area.
okay,
So we'll make sure we get your contact
okay,
information out there so people can kind of get in touch with you from there. Before we close, I want to make sure we cover this tomorrow. Like I said in the beginning, we got Pastor Jay that will open up with the midday session tomorrow under the financial seminar, and then our senior pastor, George Matthews the second, will do. We got two for two. You got a two for two going tomorrow. So you got the midday session with Pastor Jay, and then you have the session tomorrow night at 6:30, where our pastor will tie in the biblical aspect of your finances and how those two things are intertwined. So you want to make sure you keep your schedule open both at 12 and then at 6:30 p.m. That's going to be a phenomenal time. And then I'll be back with you guys on Thursday. We got a great lineup this week. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it and continue to enjoy it and continue to share it. We want to make sure we get this information out to as many people as possible. So thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you guys tomorrow. Be blessed.